Good morning, everyone. We'll call to order committee number 1, Budget and Finance. We'll first start off today's committee. We have 2 presentations, and our first presentation for the day will be Hospitality Hub, Kelsey Johnson and Jamie Naylor. You will have 10 minutes. Be sure to state your name and your address before you start speaking, and then if you are going to volley back and forth, remember to say your name each time because we'll have a listening audience as well. Thank you. Make sure you press the button with the person. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Kelsey Johnson, 101 South Main Street, Executive Director of the Hospitality Hub. And let me get myself together here. Good morning, commissioners. I want to say a special thanks to our chairperson this morning and our 5 co-sponsors of this particular project that we're doing. Chairman Whaley, Commissioner Bradford, Commissioner Avant, Commissioner Caswell, Commissioner Lowry, and Commissioner Ford for being a fan. I don't know if you see you have our packet in front of you. And the thing I want to say I'm going to go through it kind of quickly and not read to you this morning. Homelessness in Shelby County is not a downtown problem, although we see people downtown seeking services all the time. I was telling Jared this morning, man I work with, that my nephew just graduated from Millington Central, and one of the guys who graduated with him has spent time at my brother's house and spent time at the Weekly Rate Hotel and spent nights at other classmates' houses because he has graduated from Millington Central as a homeless child. And we have right now 2,960 homeless children in our school system this past year. And we want to do something about that. You all know us and are familiar with the work that we've done here in the city and county. We've been very successful at delivering success and results and filling gaps from be it the warming center, be it opening a women's shelter in the midst of a pandemic when other shelters were closing and sending their employees home. We were calling past interns, and our children even came and worked for us to staff a women's shelter. And so we always respond, we always fill gaps, we always see the problems. And when we heard about the number of homeless children we have in this county, we immediately jumped to try to do something about it. We are turning crisis into progress, as you've seen us do over and over and over. We do what we say, we show up, and we deliver trauma-informed services in a beautiful way, helping people to exit homelessness. We are the premier homeless agency for the city and county. And we've been very innovative in the way that we've faced these problems. We have not done things in a traditional way, packing people into rooms on cots and triple-layer bunk beds and things like that. We have done it in a way that is not dehumanizing, but is encouraging to a person who's going through the most traumatic time of their life. Being homeless is the greatest evidence of brutal poverty. And the hub is dedicated to to fighting this brand of brutal poverty. You've seen our hub studios, if you've been to our website, that are designed for people who cannot live in congregate shelter. We have an outreach team that goes out to tent encampments and under bridges and overpasses and finds people who are suffering and living outdoors, and we ask them, would you rather be somewhere else? And we may start in a hotel, but then we go to our hub studios. In the United States, the fastest growing group of homeless people are people 18 to 24. And so we have Hub Hall in Midtown, which is part of what's called the YHDP program, Youth Housing Development Program, which is in other cities, but only in the city of Memphis is it successful. We have the most successful youth housing program in the nation. Let's keep going. We know that homelessness is on the rise nationally and locally, but if you go to other cities, just go right up the road to Nashville or to New Orleans, St. Louis, where they have these huge tent encampments. There was a time we had a tent encampment right here on the mall, and it was a hospitality hub that worked to get that tent encampment disbanded, but not with water hoses and dogs, but with Chick-fil-A and Egg McMuffins and hotel rooms. And many of those people are housed now or reconnected with families, we help them get into drug and alcohol treatment, mental health, their medicines, that kind of thing. And now you can walk the mall and not have tents all over the mall because of the work the Hospitality Hub did when we were called upon. Homelessness is expanding not just where you can see it coming to work, but you also see it in Millington and Hickory Hill and Bartlett and Raleigh and Fraser especially. It's not a downtown problem, and we want to work to do all that we can to help people get income and then get housing. If you look at this map, you'll see your area on this map and the problems that you're facing in the area that you represent. Skip it again. This map is compelling because as you look at it, you see that I'm here. Can you skip me? Oh, that's not you. Next slide. I'm sorry. As you see the big swaths of that hot yellow color, that's where homelessness is the worst in this county. And it's not in 38103, 38104, 38105. It's in Southeast Memphis. It's in Fraser. It's in Raleigh. It's in Raleigh Bartlett, Raleigh Fraser, 38128, 38127, 38134, 38135. You see your area on that map. And so we're serving people from all of those places. Again, the number that is glaring to me is 2,690 children aged 5 to 18 went to a teacher, a guidance counselor, a principal, or a coach, and said, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anywhere to sleep at night. I'm sleeping at a classmate's house. I'm sleeping in an abandoned building. I'm sleeping in a car with my mom. My mom's paying for a hotel room sometime, and sometimes we don't have it. And these are our people. They are us. They're not some, it's not Boxcar Willie or some hobo that you see on TV. It's people who live like us, go to church like us, even have bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. One woman who we just got housed was an OBGYN who had a nervous breakdown when she found out her husband was cheating on her. And she found herself not able to walk back into the hospital. And so she left the hospital, left her home, lost her car, and then showed up at Hub Hotel. And now she's working at Southland Casino, dealing blackjack instead of delivering babies. But she was with us for almost a year, working on her mental health, her physical health, and the strength to go back to work. Eviction rates have climbed post-pandemic, and you'll see that the majority of evictions are not downtown where you see homeless people. They're in the neighborhoods that many of you and my my brother and uncles live in. Thank you. Next slide. This slide shows you that in this past year, we had 5,213 unique guests. What is that? That's people who've never been to a shelter, never been to the hospitality hub. That happened just here. So far this year, we're almost at 2,600 first-time guests at the hospitality hub. 339 women sheltered and 74 plus children at the Hub Hotel. Right now, I've got about 23 children living on our campus. We are fast becoming the place that the police are bringing women who are experiencing domestic violence, because one domestic violence centers just closed down, and the other one doesn't have beds ever. And so the police officers that I've engaged with said that, I can get a yes at the hub and I get a no everywhere else. I'm running out of time. I talked to you all about our YSDP program, our Hub Studios program. Next slide. And before I go, let me hit this one. The cost of doing nothing versus the value of doing the work. On the low end, 280 engagements, us housing 280 people, saves the city, the county, between $8.4 million and $14 million annually. It's so much more expensive to jail a person I know I'm running out of time, I'm sorry. We're asking that you pass this funding of $2.5 million so that we continue to do this work, not just downtown, because it serves the entire county. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. I think you had a guest that showed up. If you can introduce yourselves.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Carey. My address is 32 North Claybrook Street, Memphis, Tennessee.
Thank you so much. We do have a few commissioners that are in the queue. I'll go with those questions, and then we'll give you an opportunity to respond. Commissioner Bradford, you're in the queue.
Thank you all for your presentation, and thank you for the data and the graphs. I know we've had a recent commission meeting where my district was accused of not having any poverty or any homelessness and that type of stuff, and so this graphics obviously shows that it's all across the county. It's everywhere. I think all the commissioners here have probably already had a tour of the hub, but I'll just put it out there. I recommend any of the commissioners come out for a tour. The staff you all have working there are wonderful. They always were very smiley, happy to be there, happy to help. And then the folks that are using the facility, one lady and her child came up and just gushed over how wonderful it was and how great the facility was. And so happy to support you all however you need it. And thanks for the good work.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradford. Vice Chair Avant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, and I know that you were trying to get through your presentation, but a few things that stuck out to me. When I visited the hub, one of the things that I think I found the most interesting is that you all modeled this after one of the top hubs or facilities, like-in facilities across the country. So could you just maybe talk a little bit about that and the process you have gone through to create the atmosphere and some of the trauma-informed strategies that you're using?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Kelsey Johnson, 101 South Main Street. Yeah, we're a teaching institution there, so we have interns from all over the United States who come to learn counseling skills at the hospitality hub. And we had an anthropology intern, and as her final project, we asked her to find the best women's shelter in the United States. And so she found one called the Lotus House in Miami. And so a team of us went to the Lotus House, and they were gracious enough to let us stay there for a day and a half. And they talked to us about what we wanted a women's shelter to be, because we had an idea based on what we'd seen here in Memphis, and they thought our ideas were insane. That a woman can only stay for 21 days. What are you going to do in 21 days? She isn't even rested in 21 days. You don't need to have time limits for a person to stay. We'd never heard anybody say no time limits for women. They said you need to have broad hallways and trauma-informed colors and trauma-informed design and speak to people in low tones and all these really great ideas. And then the bed bug oven is revolutionary, that we have a hot room that when a person comes in, you put your belongings in this room and hit a switch and it warms everything up to 145 degrees and it kills fleas, bed bugs, influenza, COVID, all that kind of stuff. And then them growing their own food and serving it at the shelter. And so we've taken on all these things, having a walking track and having 2 women to a room instead of women sleeping in a room by themselves, having a roommate that you can talk to and lean on. So yeah, going to the Lotus House was revolutionary for us, and we brought many of those ideas back to Memphis. And so, of course, shelters from around the country are coming to, and people from municipalities around the country have visited our shelter to try to mimic it in other cities.
Thank you. And I thought that was the realization or the aha that women shouldn't be in a room alone, but that it provides more camaraderie with 2 women in the room, so that they don't feel so isolated. It was really an aha moment for me, and I'm thankful that you all were able to learn so much, and I see how you've incorporated even the garden where the walking area is pretty phenomenal, because I think anytime people can see something grow, provides a lot of hope for people who maybe who don't have a lot of hope. I was also very interested in the wall where you show, and I know that you just started that, those folks that have been housed, right? So the pictures that you're taking of them, so that it also provides a level of hope for the people who are there. And could you just speak briefly, and I'll get back in queue, Madam Chair, with my next question, briefly about the actual hubs outside, or I don't know exactly what you called.
Other campuses, you mean?
Well, the one that's on
Oh,
campus.
the studios.
The studios.
Absolutely. Kelsey Johnson, 101 South Main Street. We have the Hub Studio program is what you've seen in other cities. They may call them tiny houses. We don't call them that because it's not a house. It's a place that a person can shelter alone, or with their significant other, or with their child. In the city of Memphis, there isn't a place for a mother to shelter if she has big boys. If your boys are 13, 14, 15 years old, if you've got an 11-year-old that's 6 feet tall, you're going to have to sleep in your car or try to find somewhere to sleep. But you can come and sleep at the Hub, in the Hub Studios, with your big boy children. One of my favorite shelters here in town, if your male child is over 5 years old, you can't come there. And so the Hub Studio is perfect for that. People who have PTSD, OCD, things like that, the Hub Studios are perfect for them to be able to shelter. The other way that we've used Hub Studios is when you have a woman who is living in the Hub Hotel and has a job at night, or has a job that has weird hours, and she's saved up $5,000-$6,000. We're about to move her into her own apartment. We'll move her to the Hub Studio so she can live alone, and her way of living doesn't affect her roommate. She's not waking people up as she comes and goes. Her regimen is hers, and she's able to get prepared to move into her own place. And so the Hub Studios has been revolutionary. Again, it's one of the programs we have that other cities are coming to look at. It's been so successful that we've been able to get funding to build 60 more. But instead of them being studios like this, they're going to be strictly for families. And we're putting them in North Memphis, right there on the campus of Manassas High School. And because there's going to be, we had the people from the community help us design them. And two things they asked for was, we want the mom to have a kitchenette to be able to cook for herself and not have to come to our main building and feed her kids. If she wants to feed her kids in her little cottage, she can do that. And then they also wanted a door to the bedroom so that the mom could sleep separately and close her door and have her kids out there. So the ones that we're building there are 630 square feet. They're a little bigger than what you see when you come to our campus. But they're beautiful. And we know that this is a great way for sheltering families while we get them into permanent housing.
Thank you. It was quite very informative tour, and I encourage anyone who hasn't had a chance to go just to see what we talk about assets in our community. This is a true asset.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Avant. I think you actually answered most of my questions that I had for you, and I'm glad you had an opportunity to share about the project at Manassas, because that is the project in which I've heard a lot of feedback on. That's very innovative work happening there.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Brooks, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Brooks.
Just a couple of questions. In fact, I had a meeting back in December. In fact, it was a public hearing in reference to the Hospitality Hub. And there were some of your former clients there who wanted to talk about some of the issues that they faced. So I'm glad that you're here today, and that I'm here today. So can you tell me how long are individuals and/or families allowed to stay there? Is there a time limit, or is there some framework by which you let people know they have to go?
Yes, ma'am. Kelsey Johnson, 101 South Main Street. We have no time limits in place for people who come and stay with us. The thing that we require is that you continue to work on your case as we continue to work on your case. If you want work on your case, then we have you go to another shelter where you're not required to work on your case. I had a woman recently tell me, I want you out of my business. And I told her, well, to be here, I have to be in your business. I have to see, are you saving your money? Are you giving your money away? This woman was giving money to her former abuser. She was a domestic violence victim. And so I told her, if you don't want us in your business, you can go to the Missions of Charity, you can sleep at night, and they're not going to ask you any questions about what happens with your money.
So you're saying, I don't mean to be rude,
Yes,
but my
ma'am.
time is going to run out. So you're saying as long as a person has an active case whereby they're looking for a job, is that what you're saying?
It's not
then
just-
they can stay there?
Yes, ma'am. It's not
Okay.
just looking for a job. It's will you come down and talk to your counselor at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? We made an appointment for you to go and talk to this person or that person. I know you run out. Let me say something real quick to you. Like the
Okay.
person sitting to the left of me, Miss Andrea, was with us for about a year and earned her bachelor's degree while she was with us and got a job as a counselor. Now she's about to start school on her master's degree and has her own apartment and all that kind of stuff. And so there was no time limit for her because she never stopped working on her case.
So let me ask you, how do you measure your impact among the unhoused community?
The thing that
What metrics do you
there's
use?
several metrics. As you see in our thing, we measure how many people got their state ID, their driver's license, did get a job, did get signed up for Families First. That's another win. Did you get into permanent housing? Did you get into transitional housing? Did you get a job? Did you get transportation? All those things. We're working on all those things at the same time, surrounding a person in support.
Would you share that with me?
Yes,
Maybe going back to
Yes, ma'am.
2022?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate that. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
will take advantage of the next time a tour is offered. Thank
you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. We don't have any additional commissioners in queue, but you're back? Okay. Vice Chair Avant.
I just wanted to give Ms. Naylor or the other woman who came down, if they had any comments they wanted to share in the time that I have remaining.
Push the button. Introduce yourself and your address.
Andrea Carey, good morning. Andrea Carey, 32 North Claybrook Street, Memphis, Tennessee. The comments I would like to make are, it has been a pleasure of, I guess, being a product of the Hub Hotel, the Hospitality Hub, to see truly what they do on a day-to-day basis. The Hub saved so many lives. It's a great program. I'm under two great visionaries. I see their passion, their compassion for those that are marginalized. The people come through the doors every day on a day-to-day basis, and we are there to help them in their homelessness. It doesn't matter what caused the homelessness. Our main goal at the Hospitality Hub is to help end homelessness, to get them back into what they were acclimated to before the homelessness began. I work under the leadership of great people, people with the heart of the city of Memphis. And
event. There's so much I could say. I have worked at the Hospitality Hub for about 2 years now, and everything I thought I knew about homelessness, I didn't know correctly. And I've learned so much, and the organization and the people that work there are truly saving lives and making the city and the county better. I would just ask that you please support the bill. You please find a way to get the funding. We need your partnership. We need your support. The community needs it, and we can't continue to do the work that we're doing.
Almost every intersection where you have folks who have now congregated, and what we have is a small, I guess, the tent area in one of the buildings that no longer has an occupancy, and it's spreading every day. And so the fact that you all are trying to make sure to get those folks some help before it gets to the point that we have a whole tent city in one of the busiest intersections at Germantown and Dexter Road is huge. So I know firsthand. I've utilized your services in order to support and recommend people that need to have some things addressed. So thank you again for every time that I call, you guys come, and I know that you're doing that with both care and compassion for the folks that are there. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Avon, and thank you again for your presentation. A lot of really great information, and I think I am one of those commissioners that had it on my calendar. Things got crazy because we are in budget season, so I make a commitment to get that back on the calendar as Ms. Thomas shakes her head, that to make sure that I make it out there. I've heard a lot of great things, in particular about the Manassas project. So thank you for being innovative and being able to work with families. That number of 2,690 students being displaced is alarming, but more important around like the work that we know that has to continue in Shelby County. Thank you so much. All right, we're on to item number 3, Madam Parliamentarian.
Item 3 is a presentation, discussion, Shelby County Crime Lab, Mayor Lee Harris and DA Steve Mulroy.
All right, welcome, Mr. Mayor, Mr. DA. I will hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, members of the commission. Today, we're here to advocate for a focused crime lab dedicated strictly to the needs of Memphis and Shelby County. If funding is approved, we're hopeful that we'll be able to aid law enforcement agencies in this area to solve crime and identify perpetrators. So I want to start by saying the important thing here, which makes this different from some of the previous presentations around a crime lab, is that today's presentation is around focus. In other words, we want to strictly identify some core areas that make sense for Shelby County to engage in to help support public safety, solve crime. And so you'll hear from the DA shortly, but those three areas that we want to put on the table today are ballistics investigations, cell phone investigations, and rapid DNA testing. Today's presentation is also different from some of the previous presentations around a crime lab, because previously, as we brainstormed and kind of incubated that idea, there was no agency readily identifiable to administer the local crime lab. Obviously, the state, as many of you know, moved their assets out of Memphis and Shelby County, and those assets generally cover a whole host of clients, not just Memphis and Shelby County. So today's presentation suggests that Shelby County government is well positioned to take on increased load with respect to forensics. As you all know, Shelby County government already runs and administers the West Tennessee Forensics Center. We do that under a contract and a collaboration with the UT Health Science Center. And so one way we might do it or make sense is for Shelby County to expand its current competencies to include some of these very, very specific, discrete areas. At the same time, it feels like this conversation is well timed because we are in a great position in terms of advisory capacity. As many of you know, Ken Brown is one of the folks who supports us with technical expertise around some of these issues of science, and this is also an issue of medical training as well. At the same time, the Crime Commission, as of late, per their report, has developed some increased advisory capacity around the shape and the direction of a crime, what a crime lab would look like that was devoted to Memphis and Shelby County. I also think the timing is right, commissioners and Madam Chair, because we are on the brink of relaunching the West Tennessee Forensic Center in any event. As many of you know, and you have been part of those conversations with Dr. Taylor and others around what it looks like to put out an additional RFP for delivery of services associated with that center. And so as we relaunch that center, this is the right time to have a conversation around what additional capacities we'd like to get out of that center. All right, so with all that said, Madam Chair, at this time, I'd like to introduce DA Mulroy to make more specific comments about how we might have a dedicated crime lab in Memphis and Shelby County.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. District Attorney Steve Mulroy. I was just checking to make sure my remote control worked there. I have with me here Cam Dunaway from our CID unit, who also has been working on this issue, and I believe that we should have Dr. William McCutcheon from the University of Memphis available remotely. Is that the case? Yes. He couldn't be here in person, but he was the one who wrote the University of Memphis report on the crime lab feasibility study that was commissioned by the city of Memphis. And just to remind you, you all provided additional funding for him to do a supplemental report on the feasibility of a local crime lab that he's actively working on right now. But I've been consulting with him on this as well. So in general, I'm going to use the PowerPoint. In general, I think there has been a lot of talk for a while now about the need for expanded forensic capability to fight crime and to deal with the crime problem in Memphis and Shelby County. We all know that we used to have a local crime lab. The state moved it to Jackson. I'm not criticizing that move, but I am saying that the need is very great here in Memphis and Shelby County, and there's need for the ability of the local governments to supplement what TBI is doing. Specifically, one of the things that our expanded forensic capability can do is help us with our solve rate. The single most important thing that we need to do if we're going to continue the downward trends in crime that we've been seeing is to increase our solve rate, which through no fault of anyone's is through a lack of resources is lower than it needs to be. And the most important thing if you want to deter crime is have punishment be swift and certain. Well, it can't be certain if it isn't the case that we're solving a greater percentage of our crimes. One of the things that I think could really help with that would be increased forensic capability. To give you a couple of examples of some of the problems we have right now, one of the most useful types of forensics is digital forensics, the ability to get into cell phones and laptops and things of that nature. We don't really have the capacity to do that beyond homicides. We just don't have the capacity. But it would be useful to do it in a lot of other cases, because every crime that is committed, the defendant has one of these. And it's a treasure trove of information about where they've been, who they've been in contact with, things of that nature. I'd like to have the ability to do it not just in a small subset of cases, but as an investigative tool, do it throughout. Another issue that I think has been, there we go, is ballistics. The TBI does do ballistics testing for us, but there are delays. And the turnaround time, TBI has been doing a great job in reducing the turnaround time for regular DNA testing, like you would see in sex crimes. But with ballistics testings, we still have pretty lengthy delays. And having the ability to do ballistics testing on an expanded capacity here in Shelby County, I think would also be very helpful. And then finally, there's a new emerging technology that has been, I point this just right, rapid DNA. So usual DNA testing, as you well know, it can take many, many months before we get the results back. But with rapid DNA, you can get same-day results. And that is being used in a number of jurisdictions across the country. It is also the case that the MPD is exploring the idea of doing rapid DNA with some grant funding from TBI. I think the Sheriff's Department is also exploring the ability to do that as well. Right now, what its great use would be in the first few days when you're investigating a crime, when it's the most crucial, you could use rapid DNA to identify suspects or to eliminate suspects by collecting crime scene data at the scene, and also taking it in at booking so that you have a database of people to match the crime scene data against. So the rapid DNA can help you early on to figure out, are we on the right track? Is this the suspect we should be looking into? Or eliminate that suspect, that's a dead end, we need to be looking elsewhere. So that's the, yeah, okay.
I got you.
Oh, okay. All right. So if we could advance on. All right, so the objective here is basically to establish and sustain county-level forensic capacity in those three areas: digital forensics, cell phone and other related things, the rapid DNA, and enhance our ballistics capability. We are not talking about building a building from scratch. We are not saying we have to have a freestanding facility that we are going to build from scratch, but the idea is to take county resources to expand our capacity in those three areas. Next. Okay, well, actually, let me have it if you don't mind, because it's just easier for me to. I want to make sure that we're not talking about competing with TBI, which does a lot of the sex crime-related DNA testing. They've been doing a great job of reducing their turnaround time. The idea here is to complement what TBI is doing in key focused areas where there is a local need, and not to try to compete with TBI. So, three basic areas where we're talking about digital forensics. Now, this is a rough budget that is based on the University of Memphis feasibility study that Dr. McCutcheon did, and then comparing it to what the budget is in the Nashville crime lab, because Nashville has a local crime lab. We are not trying to do all of the things that Nashville does. We are trying to do, as the mayor said, three focused things. So based on that, and based on the Dr. McCutcheon University of Memphis study, here is a rough proposal, right? And these are approximate numbers. But the idea would be to have approximately $1.25 million in recurring funding to significantly beef up our digital forensics capability. That would have at least 6 personnel, along with all the software tools and licenses, training and certification, all the recurring funds that we would need to greatly expand our cell phone and other digital forensic capability. The outcome, we could have in-house forensic turnaround within a couple of days. Rapid DNA, similar amount, roughly 1.5 million in recurring funds. That would also pay for all of the tests, because each test is itself expensive, and then all of the personnel that would be necessary, all the maintenance costs, things of that nature. And then finally, and we would be able to get suspect confirmation within hours, probably in most situations, and certainly within days. And we would get compliant sexual assault kit processing. And then finally, enhanced ballistics for a roughly approximate amount. This would get us several examiners, tech support, and all the other technical things that are needed to sustain that kind of capability on a continuing basis. We would get ballistics leads within 48 hours. We would get speedy firearm linkage before trial, the kinds of things that we currently are doing, but we don't have the capacity to do all that we need to do. So I have put in here a very, very rough estimate of what we would need for equipment, facility, and administrative support, but I think that would probably be more of a one-time cost. I think once that got out of the way, you wouldn't have that as a recurring cost. So the total budget for this, which again, these numbers are approximate, would be under $6 million a year. But if we did that, we would significantly expand our forensic capability, increase our solve rate, help us to solve crimes, and really make a big stride forward for public safety. I think, do we know, is Dr. McCutcheon on the line?
I am here.
Okay, all right.
Present.
Just wanted to make sure you were there. All right, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
All right, thank you, DA Morrow. Commissioner Wright, you're in the queue.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. DA, Mr. Mayor, for the presentation. You know, sometimes when we authorize some of these things, they go out into the void, and we don't hear back. So I'm glad to hear that the funding that we provided for the feasibility study is now bearing fruit, because this is certainly an area of need in Memphis and Shelby County, as you've laid out. I heard just yesterday from the Bartlett, some of the folks in the Bartlett Police Department who've been briefed on this and are supportive, and they believe, they also share your belief that this could aid us in solving some of the violent crimes that have been left unsolved so far, and to improve that clearance rate. So certainly supportive of this effort. I guess I'm just curious, because I don't know so much about this area. Who are they ultimately reporting to? Are those techs reporting to your office or to the police divisions, or how does that actually work?
Thank you, Commissioner DA Steve Mulroy. That's an excellent question. I am not contemplating that this would be run out of the district attorney's office. I believe I would defer to the mayor as to a lot of the operational details. I know that there are a number of different places in county government that might deal with it. We have had conversations in the past about the rapid DNA part perhaps being handled by the sheriff. But I could also see a role for UTHSC.
If I may, Madam Chair. So yeah, the administration is prepared to work on standing up this new program, and we view it as an expansion of our competencies with respect to what we already do at the West Tennessee Regional Forensic Center. It will take some work to expand in this direction, but we believe that this is reasonable and feasible. And so the administration would take on this work. And in the same way that the health department currently manages that contract with UTL Science Center and manages the process of identifying how we might renew with them or identify a new vendor, that same sort of process would be available for us to identify vendors that can do some of this additional work, including the ballistics work and the cell phone investigation work and so forth. So it would be recurring and on your plate every year.
Thank you for that. I guess to refine the question, I'm curious. So if, we've got multiple police departments, Memphis, Bartlett, Germantown, whatever, sheriff's office, who determines what's the priority, I guess? That's what I'm trying to get at. Of whose work gets.
Well, that would be part of the planning process. As part of this process, obviously, we need someone to execute, and so you see some of that here. We would have to bring on a day-to-day team to manage this process, but in addition to that, there will be an advisory function. And so we would expect folks like the Crime Commission and representatives from all the law enforcement agencies to be represented on that advisory body to answer some of those questions, to figure out what the priorities are with respect to the workflow. But from Shelby County Administration's perspective, we're agnostic as to where the crime occurred. We would like to see the crime solved, and if Shelby County government can play a role in helping to resolve a crime, we want to step in to that gap, and we want to help. So we want to serve all the clients. That is to say, we'd like to serve all the law enforcement agencies.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Chair Whaley, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mayor and DA Mulroy, for the presentation. My question is around the funding mechanisms and specifically as it relates to the other crime labs and whether the state has supported or funded any of these other crime labs across. Obviously, there's the one in Jackson, but in terms of other cities and Nashville, I don't know if you clarified how the Nashville one is funded, but just want to understand, like, if this is something that has been a request of yours in the past from the state. It's certainly been something we've advocated for, obviously, like having a Memphis crime lab, but trying to also make sure that we're not necessarily absolving the state of any support that they should, arguably they should be making in this type of infrastructure. That said, I don't think that also says that we can't show leadership, and we wouldn't want to wait around for the state. But I want to be sure that we've exhausted, those avenues, or know for sure that that isn't something that they would likely do. If you can just help us understand how the other crime labs are currently being funded.
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Chairman. DA Steve Mulroy. The only other local crime lab is the Nashville Crime Lab, and that is funded entirely by the Metro Nashville government. There are 3 TBI-run crime labs across the state. The one that deals with West Tennessee for our region is in Jackson, Tennessee. I tried for a while to get funding from the state for this, and my initial proposal, and it wasn't just my proposal, was the old crime lab building that they used to have, that TBI used to run in Memphis, is currently vacant and unoccupied. And it seemed like a logical thing is the state would give us that building, we'd have the facility, and then the partnership would be, the recurring funds could be provided by the local government. The state is ultimately said they weren't going to give us the building. They have said that it is designated as a DCS intake center, which I think is unfortunate because I think it's got infrastructure that's designed to be a crime lab, so it's actually, its best use is a crime lab. But that was a non-starter. That's not going to happen. I know that the TBI has some grant money that it is going to be using to help with rapid DNA equipment, one-time funding for rapid DNA equipment with MPD and possibly later on down the line the sheriff, but no prospect that I know of for recurring funding like what we're talking about, the annual costs, staffing and the cost for the tests and the licenses and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought that it was appropriate, I've always thought that it was appropriate for the local government to step up for the recurring funding, and this is an opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Chair Whaley. Commissioner Bradford, you're in the queue.
Thank you. Similar to Commissioner Wright, I've had some of the representatives from Carville Police Department reach out, and they think this is going to be a great thing. So I am very supportive of this. I do know that I believe the TBI Crime Lab in Jackson is planning an expansion, but I don't know how long that's going to take. And so I think getting something like this on board for us is going to do a lot more to help this area than expanding the crime lab in Jackson. So I am very supportive of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would like to clarify also that we're focusing on things that the TBI isn't really doing right now, right? Again, we're not trying to compete with the TBI. We're trying to supplement in areas where we see there are gaps, right? So right now, there's not a lot of rapid DNA happening because it's an emerging technology. We don't really have the ability to get cell phone testing for anything other than homicides. I would like to expand that. And although TBI does do ballistics, as I mentioned earlier, there are delays, and we'd like to help reduce that. So the idea is to complement TBI, not to compete.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradford. Vice Chair Avent, you in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think my question was somewhat answered in just the specificity around what TBI is doing versus what you all will be doing. And you're saying right now, they do the cell phone testing, but only for homicides?
I wouldn't quite put it quite that way. Thank you, Commissioner, District Attorney Steve Mulroy. Just because of the capacity issue, we don't have the capacity to do it for all the crimes we would like. So as a practical matter, we have to focus on the most serious crimes. So as a practical matter, we're doing investigative cell phone testing for homicides, but not for many, many other types of crimes where it would be very, very useful. Now, that's not to say if we're ready to go to trial on a non-homicide case and, we need cell phone testing, we can get it done. And a lot of that cell phone stuff is being done locally anyway. But just because of the difference between supply and demand, the capacity issue, as a practical matter, we're not using this as an investigative tool in non-homicide cases.
Okay, and besides the rapid DNA, what are the other specific things that TBI does that you are not able to get done just from a capacity or supply and demand side as quickly?
Well, I think the ballistics testing has delays that we would like to ameliorate with local supplementation. And then, of course, the TBI does a wide range of testing that we're not talking about in this proposal. So, all of the sex crime-related DNA testing, we're not talking about that. They do serology. They do drug testing, toxicology stuff. They do a wide range of things where we're not perceiving those to be the great needs. As the mayor said, this is focused on 3 areas that we think are the greatest need, the greatest gaps that would have sort of the best bang for the buck. And this is something that, I've talked about with law enforcement, and they also agree that these are 3 key areas. Dr. McCutcheon himself is also available. I think he also agrees that these are 3 key areas as well.
And what location would you plan to have this run out of if you're not able to use the old TBI building?
So again, if we were to go in this direction, it would take some time for us to have a program like this up and running. I think we have some opportunities to put a facility like this. One that's been mentioned is 201 Poplar, and obviously the site of the current West Tennessee Forensic Center. And so we, own that facility and the land around it. And so we would bring back a proposal if this moves forward to eventually expand that footprint because we've got plenty of room there.
So the request for FY26 to get this up and running, as you said, it's a lot of planning. So what aspects of this do you think would be up and running for FY26 if you don't have a building identified as of yet? I guess I'm trying to see of what phase of all of this. Would you need the 5.5 million in FY26, or depending on what stages that you have that you want to have up and running, would it be a lesser amount than the 5.5 million?
Thank you for that. I think it's highly unlikely that we would be able to spend all of this in the next 12 months. But it is very likely, if this is a serious pursuit, if the county wants to expand its capabilities in this direction, then one of the first orders of business is to hire a small team to begin to work on that. And so that's probably our first initial expense, because again, the resources we have now in terms of personnel or so forth are already pretty loaded, and we would want to bring on additional team members to help support this particular project. And so that's probably one of the main things. I suspect we would not be able to begin construction without coming to you again and discussing this matter again. So I think the main thing is to get team members that are dedicated to this. If the commission decided in its discretion to go the full amount, I think that'd be great, because that would make it in the budget, and it would make it in the budget as a recurring expense from now until forever. And so that would mean that everybody could rely on this program going forward. If we only do a partial amount, I think you're right, it probably covers the most likely expenses. However, we'll have to come back. As the expenses grow, we'll have to come back and say, now we're at this phase of the planning process, and now we'll have to increase the budget. So I do think you're right, we're unlikely to expend $5.5 million.
Thank you, Vice Chair Avent. Commissioner Brooks, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Mayor, help me to understand, and I'm looking at the $6 million, and I hear you saying that, and I hear you saying the county, us. So help me to understand, why would the county, or would the county, take on this whole $6 million? Wouldn't it be more equitable to share this $6 million with the city and our police agencies? Or was there another reason?
Well, it's always more equitable to spread responsibility out, right? I think that's absolutely the case. The question is, how important is this priority, and how fast do we want to move? Because if this is a top priority and we want to see it launched with some level of momentum, we have the ability to fund it ourselves and get the job done. If we don't see it, if we see it differently, if we feel like we've got more time and we feel like we want to spread the love out, we can do that too. It's just going to take longer. That's all. So it's just a question of timing and priorities. We're here because we feel like the county could play a role in solving crimes, and it could support the law enforcement agencies that are trying to solve crimes. That's all. The county's gonna relaunch forensics anyway, and so we could expand our forensics to include some of these investigatory services. I agree others could pay for it, but we could pay for it too, and we could get this party started.
Well, I just, lastly, let me just say, if we have the money to do it, fine and good. But our police agencies, MPD, the Sheriff's Department, and the city government over there all have a stake in solving crime. So I believe that they will become more invested if in this, or getting crimes solved, if we brought them to the table and tasked them with the responsibility of a share of this. That's my opinion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Vice Chair Avent, you're back in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was also my follow-up question, and it really is, if we do have the money and if there are phases of this that could be started by Shelby County, but that the city of Memphis, Bartlett, Collierville, Germantown, all who have a stake in the data and analysis that will be done at this crime lab, where are we engaging them in this process as well? If the sheriff's department has some funds, I'm not speaking for the sheriff, obviously, but I think when we're having these conversations about how funds should be utilized, could this be a dialogue with the sheriff about what part of his budget could go as a reoccurring cost to support this particular crime lab? And I think they're already doing this, right? The sheriff's department and all of the other municipal police forces are meeting every Wednesday out in Arlington to review data, right? This is part of what they do in how they're trying to assess what crimes are happening. And the sheriff shared with me it's a really pretty robust organization, a robust meeting where they're all sharing that information together. Well, if we're talking about how we're going to be utilizing this crime lab all over the county, I do think that there's a way that we should be thinking about how we're going to pay for that all over the county. And if that means that we start and upfront that, right, in order to get what aspects of this you think could be up and running within the 12-month for the fiscal year 26, and then allow us during that time, to Commissioner Brooks's point, bring other folks along to see what portion of this should be paid from their budgets to support something that is obviously going to be utilized by everyone in Shelby County. So I would make an amendment for us to change the amount that we're going to utilize at this point, and then we need to have some discussions with the other municipalities as well as the city of Memphis.
I think those comments are well received. I think that's at the discretion of the commission. I think that there are plenty of different ways to attack this problem, and I think it is reasonable to have an approach that brings in other folks as contributors, financial contributors to the goal, and that we put in the upfront money. So I think that's just at the discretion of the commission, but I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Amen, Mr. Mayor. DA Moore, I do have a question around, you mentioned the average turnaround for ballistics is slow right now. Just give me an idea of what's the average regarding turnaround.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The University of Memphis report had said that for 2023, the average turnaround time was 479.5 days. However, I believe TBI has been improving. I know that a while back we were at a crime commission meeting where we were discussing this, and the crime commission had passed a resolution in favor of a local expansion of forensic capabilities in these areas, and there was a figure of 70 weeks. I can try to get you the more recent data, and I can follow up with you on that.
All right, please do. And because you're saying, based upon this work happening closer here in Shelby County, we would go down from 70 weeks to possibly how many weeks? Turnaround time.
Well, again, I'm not committed to what the ultimate outcome in terms of time would be. What I'm committed to is that we be able to expand capacity to deliver this service and serve more of the law enforcement agencies in town.
Okay.
And
This is Dr. McCutcheon.
Yes.
I had some thoughts on this, if I can provide them.
Commissioner, I was just about to ask if we could allow Dr. McCutcheon to speak, because he's been listening.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Dr. McCutcheon.
Yes. So the crime lab in Houston's average, now that's an independent crime lab. They serve a lot more. They have over 250 analysts there on site. Houston's one of the largest cities in the country, but their turnaround time is approximately in the 70 to 80 day range. Nashville is in the 200s on their turnaround time. Now, I want to distinguish something here, because getting NIBIN leads, that takes a very short amount of time, a day or two, and that's part of the investigative process. However, examinations, firearm, tool mark analysis, that takes training, 2 to 3 years of training for a firearm examiner to go through. TBIs, I believe they're at 1 or 2 firearm examiners. Adding an additional firearm examiner or 2 here would likely increase the time or decrease the time for analysis. Not all cases end up in a firearm examiner's lab for testing. Obviously, we can get plea bargains and such, but if we're going to take it to trial, most definitely the turnaround time for that is crucial. And so we are above average on that, and that's what the feasibility study for the city showed. And right now, there is also need, I would say, that we're going to be coming out with a report in August on the need for the counties and the suburbs as well.
And Commissioner, if I could also add, just to clarify what Dr. McKitchen said, he used the term NIBIN, and it's sort of like a nationwide database, kind of like CODIS for ballistics, and you can get a NIBIN check done very, very quickly within a couple of days, but that's not admissible in court. And that's just for an initial investigative purpose only. And what we're focusing on here is not the NIBIN stuff, because we do NIBIN pretty well here locally, but confirmatory ballistics testing, when you actually confirm, and the kind of thing that actually could be used at trial. And so that's why Dr. McCutcheon was talking about going to trial versus a plea bargain.
All right, thank you for that. And I guess my round of questions is really based upon we're asking for this type of investment, and the ultimate goal, I think, is to be able to solve crime quicker. And if we're this type of reoccurring investment, and I think probably why people are responding is because the opportunity to solve crime quicker. I mean, public safety is a huge issue right now in Shelby County. So if we're saying by having to rely on some of our most immediate needs going to Jackson, and the turnaround time is 479 days, 480, 490, whatever, and we can cut that in half, then the opportunity to be able to go to trial quicker, solve it quicker, I think that's pretty much why you're asking for this investment.
Commissioner, I think it's two things: to solve crimes quicker, but then also just to solve more crimes, just to get the total percentage of offenses that do result in arrests to be increased. I think both of those are important goals. You're right to point out that their need for public safety.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Caswell, you in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've been listening to this morning. Again, appreciate you all bringing this. I know in Public Safety Ad Hoc, you all came before, as well as the state of Tennessee came talking about the crime lab to us. I know this is a great tool, very much needed in our capacity to solve these crimes. One of them, and I had a meeting this morning with some of our MPD people in Austin P. We talked about a situation that just got solved out there. Solved. The person was taken into custody. Well, a lot of the concern too of that is we have a tool like this. We arrest these individuals, but we send them get right back out. Right. With this help in that capacity of when we talk about speedy crime, how do we? They're not going in there for the murder that they just committed in our community, but right back out a couple of days later because they got a $50,000 bond or what have you, and it's coming back into our community. So I just want to know, like, would this help us in that capacity when we talk about really having the strong evidence to present to the judge that make them hold these individuals instead of giving them low bonds and letting them back out?
Yeah, Commissioner, this is DA Steve Mulroy. I share your concern about the issues where people with long criminal histories, or there's some reason to suggest that they might be a danger to public safety, are in fact let out in situations where they shouldn't, and we're certainly working on that. One area where this proposal might intersect with that is with respect to the rapid DNA, because the rapid DNA could be taken at intake upon arrest for felonies, and then it could be checked. And you could check to see whether those people are in fact wanted for other crimes, or in fact if they haven't properly identified themselves, and they've used an alias, and you can identify who they really are. Then you would be able to prevent situations in which someone was released when they probably shouldn't have been released. So that part of it, I think, intersects with your question.
Yeah, and I know the other day we had a resolution come, Commissioner Wright brought it about an priority ask to the federal government. Have you been in contact with the FBI or the federal agency when they talk about the federal agents and coming in to help us around violent crime? How can we speed up a request to them from Department of Justice to help with some of this initial funding, infrastructure funding, to kind of help us offset some of this that is not a burden on the county? Do you think that's a possibility, or are you having those type of conversations?
Commissioner, we have had conversations in the past about getting federal grant funding, one-time funding for equipment. Mm-hmm. But it didn't seem that it was a likely prospect that we would get recurring funding.
Yeah.
Which is what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And we will continue to pursue the federal grant funding for the equipment, for the one-time equipment, that's for sure. And then I think to an earlier part of your question, we do regularly consult with our partners in federal law enforcement. In fact, we have weekly meetings in gun-related crimes to kind of figure out which cases the feds will take and which cases they won't. So those talks do continue.
And again, thank you, DA, Madam Chair. I just say that as we talking to them, that as they make us a priority for this act in which they're about to come into, even if it's a pilot approach to this, helping us around this funding to see how it impact us like it did in Virginia, where a lot of individuals were taken off the street and some decrease in crime is happening there because of their intervention with the FBI agents. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caswell. Commissioner Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Point of personal privilege. Am I recognized? Thank you. Mr. D.A. Mulroy, I want to refresh your memory. On several occasions, you appeared before this commission, and I asked you a question about a case, Alandis Jones, who was in the custody of youth villages. And I know at least on 2 occasions you told me that that case was being investigated, and that was all that you could tell me. Well, within the last couple of months, there's been some reporting that I read that said that those individuals, I think it was 4 youth village workers, that were charged with the death of Alandis Jones, had been indicted. And there was no further investigation. And then some other reporting I read said that the DA had rescinded the indictment and no further investigation. And then additional reporting said that there was a letter from the board chair of youth villages to you asking you to dismiss the case. Now, I know that this is not before us, but to me, personally, this accountability needs no permission. So I need to hear from you why is no one held accountable for that child's death.
Commissioner, there are limits to what I can say, but I will be happy to tell you that we did initially take the position that there were some individuals that could be held criminally responsible for it. But very, very quickly, within a day or two, we withdrew the indictment because new evidence had been presented to us, which caused us to reconsider our decision. And that evidence had to do with a number of things. One of it was some expert reports that we had seen about the nature of the hold that had led to the tragic death of the victim. It caused us to do a further investigation, and we actually re-interviewed some witnesses. And some witnesses, well, at least one witness that we thought had originally had indicated that there was an improper motive for the hold that led to the death. Upon re-interviewing that witness, it turned out that that was not, in fact, the testimony that we were going to get at trial. And so after re-interviewing a number of different witnesses and considering a number of different experts, including experts that we consulted ourselves, we ultimately decided that we couldn't really bring criminal charges. That the death, while tragic, wasn't the kind of thing that we could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the death was criminal. Now, what we did do is we met with youth villages and indicated some issues we had with their procedures that, while we're not criminal, needed to be remediated. And they agreed to fund 2 independent experts of our choice to take a look at their procedures and basically overhaul those procedures to make it unlikely or as less likely as possible that a tragedy like that would recur. And that, in my judgment, ended up being the best solution for the situation, because the facts ultimately didn't bear out criminal prosecution in that case.
Okay, so no one was held accountable.
I wouldn't agree with that characterization, because in light of what I just said, but you're free to disagree with me about that.
Let me say this. I'm not going to, of course, I can't debate it with you, but I'll have additional conversation with you offline about this. Thank you.
I'd be happy to do that, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right, I have one last question about this before there are no additional commissioners that are in the queue. But based upon some of the comments that were made here today regarding like the timing as far as getting you going, and you're asking for almost a total, can't see the slide from where I am, that, yeah, 5.5 of where we are. What's the timeline of when we could actually say the services can be used in Shelby County? If, let's say, you get full funding, what day can we expect for saying, oh, we're fully ready to go, you're able to be able to do all three of these things without any issues?
Commissioner, you want to?
Well, I was just going to say thanks, Madam Chair. This is a technical area we wouldn't be able to say today. That's all.
I was going to say that it'll probably vary depending on which of the three areas. There are some areas that we might be able to stand up more quickly, like the cell phone stuff. It might take a little bit longer to find the requisite expertise for the ballistics, confirmatory ballistics testing, and get the facility ready for that. And Madam Chair, I was wondering if I could, could we allow Dr. McCutcheon one more opportunity to see if there's anything he wanted to add in light of the discussion?
Yes, Dr. McCutcheon?
Yes, Dr. McCutcheon. I agree. Firearm examiner might take more training. Will take more training, more time. So I agree with that point. Digital forensics, the setup for that, depending on where it's housed and what, because digital forensics is, once again, is a lot of agencies deal with it as an investigative. So it's a part of the police investigative process. And so increasing that capacity for the suburbs as well as the county may take some time. But the training will be 2 years if we brought in someone with firearm examination for firearm examiners for sure. Now that depends on whether or not we could hire someone already with that expertise as well. So I would agree with that statement.
Thank you for that. I am interested if between now and whenever we have additional conversations about this investment, if we could have like kind of an attempted timeline around, so that way at least citizens could have an opportunity of understanding where their investment is going and like what the expectation is of being able to have results back, at least for some of this. I get something, ballistics is going to be longer than probably at the bottom, but what are the quick, easy, low-hanging fruit?
Yes, Madam Chair.
This is Dr. McCutcheon again. We are counting the study that PSI is heading up through the University of Memphis is going to be released in August. And in that, we can discuss potential time ranges for that.
Madam Chair, Dr. McCutcheon, I believe that you might be able to get us sort of an advanced preliminary version of the study that might be more useful for the current budget process timeline?
I talked to Mr. Gibbons yesterday about this, and he said that he's supportive of that, and we're going to try to have something sooner. I can't say exactly when, but our hope is July.
All right, that's useful. Since you are doing it for the county commission, I think that would be useful.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any additional commissioners in queue regarding this item. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Parliamentarian, can you read item number 4, please?
Item 4 is an ordinance third reading. Ordinance fixing the tax rate for Shelby County, Tennessee at blank dollars for tax year 2025, fiscal year 2026, sponsored by Commissioner Miska Clay Bibbs and Chairman Michael Whaley.
Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian. I think we made a commitment to bring items 4, 5, and 6, and 7 back to subcommittee for discussion. I guess I'm looking for finance. I see Director Tipton here as she shakes her head. But definitely wanted to give her an opportunity to give us an update on if we have actually received our letter. Or I don't see Ms. Deputy Director Thompson. I don't see him. Well, okay, welcome. Again, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are discussions because we did make the commitment of bringing these discussions back to subcommittee. I think ultimately, 4, Madam Parliamentarian just read it. We wanted to know if there's any update regarding our certified tax rate letter.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. We have a 11:30 meeting scheduled with the state office to finalize our certified tax rate.
So the expectation is for sure we should be able to have the letter by Friday? All right, and then that way we'll be able to have this item in subcommittee for June 11th?
Correct, yes.
All right, thank you. All right, I see Mr. Bailey shaking his head too, so thank you so much. All right, so then, Madam Parliamentarian, can you read item number 5?
Yes, ma'am. Item 5 is a resolution approving and appropriating Shelby County Government's operating budget for fiscal year 2026, sponsored by Commissioner Miska Clay Bibbs.
Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian. I think this is where now we'll have a presentation, or comments. I mean, you have a presentation that's being loaded. All right.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. What I was going to show you all today dealt with the revenue projections in the current proposed budget, if there was any remaining questions concerning our property tax collections. That was going to be the gist of today's conversation.
So it's most appropriate for you to do your presentation or whatever you're trying to present right now regarding item number 5.
Yeah, pull up each one. It's labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull up 1 first, then 2, then 4. Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO, Shelby County Government. In the past meeting, there was some conversation surrounding our property tax collections over the past 4 fiscal years. I wanted to present to you today the information that we used to be confident in the numbers in the proposed budget. The trustee has done a wonderful job in her collection over the past 4 years, and we expect the same. She does a great job in ensuring that we receive the proper taxes that we are due. And so what I have here is information actually from the trustee, and it's her report where we will evidence the excess collections of property tax revenue, which is our basis for our FY26 projection. So if you go to page 2 of this one, this is FY24. And if you see there was a 101.61 collection percentage. She collected in excess of $12 million over what was projected. If we can pull up the second trustee report from FY23. And we go to page 2 here, you will also see a collection percentage in excess of 100%. And looks like there was an excess of $11 million collected in 23. As I move through these, please, if you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss further.
I hear the mayor. I didn't hear the question.
If we make that a little bit bigger, the top line, right here. So it says realty, personalty, and SAP current tax year. We have a revenue forecast, and I'm actually having a hard time seeing it myself. We have a revenue forecast of 802 million. Trustee actually collected 811 million. That is it possible to make that bigger, Marie? I may have to go to the screen. I have it. Don't worry, I have it. I got it. Yeah. Yeah, there was an $11.5 million excess collection over what was projected. For a total of 101.44%. Revenue, when revenue is collected, if we, in this situation here, the projection was 800.364048. They collected 811,874,302, which is more money. That's why it is negative. It's actually a better figure for the county.
And if I may add also, Audrey Tipton, Director of Administration and Finance, to that number, as we stated before, in governmental accounting, at the end of the year, we're allowed to accrue the additional month of revenue collections. So in other words, everything that the trustee collects in the month of July that relates to June property taxes is also accrued back to that current fiscal year. So at the end of that year that you're looking at, the actual collections are the number that's on the screen. But what we actually had to work with in that year was $814,840,930. So the revenue is even higher than what is actually collected, that we can budget for, use for in that fiscal year to take care of all of the things that we need to be taken care of. So that is the point that we've been trying to make in this whole scenario, is that the trustee is correct. She has been doing a great job at 97%, and she's done even better than 97%. And with all of the processes and new things that she's put in place, she's now collecting over and above what the previous trustees have collected. But in addition to that, governmental accounting allows for us to accrue for that one extra month of collections, which is July, back to June, and we can use that revenue for all of the different things that we need to have done in that fiscal year. So that's why we are sticking to our numbers, saying, yes, she's right on cash receipts, but as far as financial reporting and accounting, what we can do, we can use another month.
Thank you for that. Are there any additional statements regarding this? There are no commissioners in queue, so I just wanted to give you this time.
Michael Thompson, Deputy CFO. I just wanted to finish out the last two reports that will show this same pattern for FY22 and also FY21. So here on our screen, we have FY22. And if you see here on page 2, we have a 102.13% collection percentage. The receipts forecast was 770 million. 786 million was actually collected. And we can also go to the next one as well, to the last one. And for this last one, which is FY21, we have 102 collection percentage as well. So I must say the trustee has done a phenomenal job over the past 4 fiscal years in collecting in excess of the receipts forecast to benefit Shelby County citizens, and we would expect that to continue into FY26 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Madam Trustee that's come forward. Madam Trustee.
Good morning, Regina Newman, County Trustee. I'm going to point out again that finance is comparing apples to oranges. These reports are based on forecasts. With ever-changing forecasts made each year, and those 4 forecasts were based on lower collection percentages. When we raised the amount we were collecting for fiscal year 25 and 26, we have raised our collection percentages in the forecast. We will not be over collecting those amounts this year nor next, because those amounts are compared to revenue forecasts, not the amounts billed. The amounts billed change throughout the years, throughout the fiscal year, and at the end of the year, we collect 97%. Not 98. So we have already increased the forecast for FY25. We have not yet met it. It is June. And there will not be extra money. And I will state again that a 98% collection forecast for realty and personalty for FY26 is a fantasy. And it puts the county budget $9.5 million in the hole. The fact that you can accrue July, we operate on cash, the cash that comes in from July 1st to June 30th, the end. That's the fiscal year for us. The fact that finance can accrue July also means that they accrued last July to the prior fiscal year. There are still only 12 months in the year. They're just using different Julys. So it doesn't change a lot. July is a very slow month, doesn't change a lot. And to include a forecast of 98% collections that has never been done, just like 97% was never been done before I got here, and we have not gone above that, then that is going to leave a hole in the budget.
Thank you, Madam Trustee. Commissioner Caswell, you're in the queue.
And that's why, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to hear from the trustee, because this what makes it hard for me, because I know even in the first year, in looking at the budget and understanding when the trustee presented and she was saying projected, it was not the actual amount of money that was actually supposed to be raised, collected. I mean, just say we got $100 million, you projected $80 million, and basically you gave 98% of the $80 million, not of the $100 million. Is that where you're coming from? I'm just using that as an example.
Commissioner Caswell, Regina Newman County Trustee. Yes, I'm stating that the projections for revenue have to be something we will reach.
Yeah.
And they cannot run short at the end of the year. So the projections do not equal the amount billed. The amount billed is going to be a few points higher.
Yeah.
So if we collect extra, great.
Yeah.
If we don't reach the projecting by projecting something that we can't reach,
Yeah.
there will be a shortage at the end of the year.
Yeah, and so, and Director, and again, just listening to that and understanding from looking at those numbers, I'm glad next week I'm going to Kansas to get certified even deeper in finance and to understand this even the more. It's hard when I look at the budget that's being presented, and then what the DA just came with an ask, and we got other asks that's coming, knowing that with what the trustee is saying to us. Again, when you say 102%, then that's, for me, from what I understand, was over, yes, but not all the way to the point that we supposed to be collecting a lot more money, right? It went over the amount she gave us, right? So when you doing this budget, are you saying based on the numbers that she's given us, that you're projecting, not looking at the whole amount? If I can, example again, you're looking at the 80 million may get to 90 million, but we really supposed to be collecting 100 million. Is that the kind of research you all are doing when you put your numbers together, Director of Finance?
Thank you. That's a good question. Audrey Tipton, Director of Administration and Finance. Yes, that's how we're looking at it. You're saying that the full amount that we are recording, which is what the trustee forecast, we record that as our budget, or that's what we have in the past, and we're asking that she increase that number by 1%. That is 98% of the overall amount billed. And also to add to the conversation, I know we're focusing a whole lot on her collections and the revenue, but we also have to take into consideration when we're budgeting, we're looking at it as a whole. We're not just looking at the revenue, we're also looking at the expenditures that we're budgeting for, and there are a lot of estimates that are included within those expenditures as well. So when we look at it, we're not just saying revenue is going to come in at a certain amount and that's the end of it. We have to factor in personnel costs and O&M costs and all those different things to see where our bottom line is going to fall in order to get us a flat budget. So I'm just saying, don't put everything on this number. This is a very, very important piece, but it is also just a part of the big picture.
Commissioner Caswell, you're back in the queue.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I can appreciate that. And when we look in light of, too, where we see all of these cuts coming from the federal, and at this point, I haven't heard anyone is getting laid off from their jobs, and money is being cut. I'm on the board of the Aging Commission. We heard about dollars that's not coming into the Aging Commission, different places. To that equation, I'm still trying to see, are we in step still with not being able to lay nobody off? We're talking about giving raises. And I don't want, again, as we look at next year and still talking about building new schools and everything else we got to, and then have to come back and say, oh, we made a mistake, right? Because if we got the trustee here saying, like, these numbers are short because that's not the full number. But yet we're hearing you saying we're basing this off 9 million. She was short from that number, but then don't look at that number. So I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding this before I give my vote to know with my clear heart that we made the right decision. So.
Director Tipton.
Thank you. Audrey Tipton, Director of Administration and Finance. We're not short. If we can look in our financials and see where we've exceeded the collections each year. So we are basically looking at the trends. And the things that we've built in this budget this year will address some of those issues. It'll help us, the body, as well as the administration, to be more prudent and more, I guess, concise in how we spend the money throughout the year. So we built in the increase for personnel costs because we're trying to be more efficient as far as how we pay our employees, which will then cut down on having a revolving door of people coming down asking for increases in parity and all of that. So we're trying to address all of those issues on the front end. So I've said it before, we're trying to look at the big picture, not just focus and hone in on one aspect of this budget. It is an all-inclusive budget.
And I appreciate that, Chief. I spoke with the mayor about this, when we talk about the other needs of the county, I think that, Mayor, and I'm still going through the budget, when we talk about public safety and the impact of, not just from the standpoint of how we put individuals in jail, we need to do that. I'm for that. But when I'm seeing so much Boys and Girls Clubs closing, MAM closing, Girls Inc., I just spoke with them, they may be on the verge of losing funding. What do it look like in our county? Because I need to go back to my district and say, we doing something with these young people staying on the streets all night in the neighborhood with nothing to do, that we are putting that in the budget, because right now I don't see how that look for our county. I can't even explain that to them, but I can say, well, we just going to pass the budget and go on and hope that everything is going to be all right. at this point, it don't look like everything is going to be all right. So I'm looking for more clarity in that, Madam Chair. I thank you for the time, and hopefully we can get some understanding before the budget is passed.
Thank you, Commissioner Caswell. I will also, as I've started out in January, stating that I think this is an opportunity for commissioners to do one-on-ones with Deputy Director Thompson and Director Tipton around getting clarity. The goal here was, as we stated on last committee meeting, was to bring this to subcommittee for additional conversation. No one's making any type of decision here on 4, 5, 6, or 7 today. It really is, they're just put here for additional conversation, so that way, hopefully, we will not be anywhere to 2 o'clock in the morning when it's time for us to pass an approved budget for Shelby County. I don't see any additional commissioners in queue regarding this. And Madam Parliamentarian, just for the sake of the record, can you read 5, 6, and 7 together? I'm sorry, you already read 5, I apologize. 6 and 7 together, because 6 and 7 really is based upon number 5.
Yes, ma'am. Item 6 is a resolution amending the Shelby County FY 2026 FY 26 capital improvement budget in the amount of $160,509,466, sponsored by Commissioner Miska Clay Bibbs. And item 7 is a resolution approving the Shelby County 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2026 through 2030, sponsored by Commissioner Miska Clay Bibbs.
Thank you, Madam Parliamentarian. I don't see commissioners in queue regarding 6 and 7, so if you can read item number 8, please. I'm sorry. Commissioner Wright, you move quick.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Did have some feedback on the CIP portion of the budget presentation. One thing I'm missing is for those projects that are active in this fiscal year, I'm missing the summary of those projects. And so I went back, and I think because the way we passed the last budget, that got kind of scrambled as well. And so I actually had to go back two budget cycles to see some of the detail. So if there's some way to compile those, I think there's just like probably 15 or so. Well, at least in the first category, but just so I have a little more detail on those projects would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Bradford?
Thank you. Commissioner Avant and I had a lot of discussions with fire department this year, trying to get the facility and stuff. Could we have a breakdown also of the fire department's budget? If that's something we could maybe get more information on, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradford. All right, now, Madam Parliamentarian, can you read item number 8, please?
Item 8 is a resolution amending the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget, ratifying and approving an economic change agreed to in the Memorandum of Understanding between the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, Local Union Number 1733, and the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, sponsored by Commissioner McWright.
Oh, is this a substitute? Ms. Lindsay, this, what we're getting now is a substitute, correct? Is it captioned a lot different?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. It changes the word resolution to motion. But then within the body of the resolution, it changes the dollar amount.
Okay, Madam Parliamentarian.
If you're seeking to withdraw the existing resolution, then when we have the proposed budget ahead in front of us, then we just make the motion and do motion, like, just make a motion. So the item could be, if you seek to take action today, we have to move and second it, and then we can withdraw the item. And then when the proposed budget
All right, Madam Parliamentarian, you've already read, though, the caption, correct? Okay, so just for the record, this is for discussion purposes, and there will be an action taken during the regular committee meeting. So, Ms. Lindsay.
Was the ability for corrections deputies to top out in 3 years instead of 5, to align with the Deputy Sheriff's Association. And we tried to get that amount included in the fiscal year 2026 budget. However, there is an economic impact to the fiscal year 2026 budget. Therefore, it has to come before you as an amendment to the fiscal year 2026 budget if it is approved. So the economic amount is about 700 and special salary schedule. They would get the benefit of increased dollars in fewer years. And the Shelby County Sheriff's Office recommends approval of this item, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioner Wright, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Sheriff and team, for presenting. Certainly supportive of this. I think we're a little bit still figuring out the process for how we are proceeding on some of these items, and so.
So I think, if I understand Madam Parliamentarian correctly, this is discussion for subcommittee. Then you would actually make this a budget amendment after we are real clear on what truly number 5 looks like in my mind, the actual budget. As a motion.
Yeah, so I guess what I was just trying to provide some context, but because I think in prior years, we've made, like, this would typically be like Amendment A under item 5, and then that would get carried on. So I think that was the intent, but perhaps with the way that we're going through subcommittee this year, somehow got added as a separate item. And so I don't know.
So it would still be like 5A when you're actually in full committee.
Yeah.
Subcommittee really is to get all of the questions, as much discussion out as possible.
Gotcha.
So then that way, when you're ready to present it as 5A as an amendment, then hopefully there will not be any type of unreadiness when people are being able to make the decision of vote up or down.
Gotcha. So is there any, I know we've said this is a discussion for discussion only. Is there any action that we need to take at this time?
No action.
Okay.
Looks like Director Tipton has a statement to make on about this item. I'm sorry, Thornton. Apologize. Around this item.
Good morning, Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources. And we want you also to take in consideration, when this is brought to our attention, which Human Resources was not a part of these negotiations. However, keep in mind that whatever you all do here also have an impact upon the pay parity for those corrections officers in corrections. If you recall, there is a pay parity ordinance that's pending by Commissioner Sugarman, also in the budget, which also will have a fiscal impact upon the corrections officers in the corrections department. So although the sheriff, and we appreciate the sheriff having done that, the matter had already been negotiated, and typically it's a 1, 3, 5 year, which is the same thing we have in Department of Corrections with Director Alexander. So when we calculate those numbers, those figures will have to be also calculated within someone's budget. So it's not a simple $735,000 that was presented today. You may be looking at several $1 million up on this fiscal impact.
Ms. Lindsay, and then I go to you, Commissioner Caswell.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. While we may not have been represented by Shelby County Government Human Resources, we were represented by the Shelby County Attorney's Office, and there were 2 attorneys that signed off on this memorandum of understanding. That is Catherine Frazier and Jason Durance.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Commissioner Caswell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to that, I know in past years, and we still dealing with people that's coming and saying, as you said, Director Thornton, that won't pay parity and want to be equal to. So, Madam Chair, if we could, if Director Thornton maybe can get us those numbers. If we're going to move forward this way, I think like now is the time before we go into budget, so we're not talking about somebody coming later and then we trying to figure out the fund balance or what have you to pay for giving those other individuals pay parity.
Thank you, sir. Gerald Thorne, Director of Human Resources. I'm not saying you're obligated to do either one of these items because in the state of Tennessee, MOUs do not exist. These are contracts. These are not contracts. These are not legal enforceable documents. And again, like I said, when it was brought to my attention, it was like, okay, the Sheriff Department is actually asking for XYZ without the approval of Human Resources. Oh, I shouldn't say with approval, without the input of Human Resources. As such, I know you all have passed this pay parity ordinance, or at least it's out there on a third reading. It was an ordinance that was passed. And so with that, we will, I guess I will bring those calculations to you all. But this was done kind of out of the ordinary historically, and you all will have to approve the MOU. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Sheriff Department, but you have to approve the MOU's language first and foremost before you can approve the dollars, because this was a MOU that was negotiated that did have a fiscal impact.
Yeah.
So once you do that, then you can actually talk dollars and cents. But the MOU itself, the language that has been changed, has to be approved by this body first and foremost. And then you can talk about the fiscal impact.
So that, in just in that lane, you're talking about this can come after the budget. Like we get some estimated numbers if based on what is being presented to us today, based on what we are looking at with the other correctional officers or what have you, is it possible we get some numbers that tell us where we may be looking at?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, before budget, before the...
Oh, absolutely, yes. And this
Okay.
also will have an impact upon the YJAC as well. So I'm just bringing that to your attention as well. The Juvenile Court Detention Center would have an impact upon them as well due to the fact that they, as you well know, the sheriff is vacating that position in October.
So it's those extra 50 or 70 position, I think it is, that's going to juvenile court, yeah.
Right.
So if you can help us there, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And Sheriff, again, appreciate you all. I just want to know, I know last year a lot of discussion because we got in this at the end of budget to say how do we make this right for the Sheriff's Department as well as the budget to going forward. And there was a discussion around the number of officers that was needed for the Sheriff's Department. I know you've been recruiting and doing a lot of bringing new people on. Could you tell us the number of people that's now officers that you have? Did you meet the 150 or that you was looking to get last year, new officers?
Floyd Bonner, Shelby County Sheriff. Thank you, Commissioner. I don't think we have met it. We are moving. I'm seeing recruit classes larger than we've ever seen in the last few years. And it's due to the money that was given to us for recruitment using funds that I'm trying to think, Kelly and Associates and others with the advertisement. One of the things when we negotiated this, wanting to bring pay kind of in line with the deputy sheriffs was also to get more jailers in the jail instead of topping out in 5 and topping them out with 3, just as the law enforcement side does. When we negotiated with ASME, I was not there at the table. Chief Lindsay was, I think Chief Fields was here. I think Ms. Thorne was here for I think the first or second meeting. You weren't? Okay. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's no malice intent on our part. It was just trying to align our agency with law enforcement and corrections.
Yeah, and so when we look at, I think it's something just happened across the street where Memphis police officers are receiving the 5% rate. So are we in line with where they are, or are we lower than that? Because I know we'll be coming back and say we need to get to that point.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Commissioner Caswell, thank you for the question. We will come back before this body, hopefully next week, with additional budget amendments. And one of those amendments is to provide a 2% increase on top of the 3% increase that is being proposed to all county employees, because we want to make sure that we're able to recruit and retain public safety employees. And when you have the surrounding municipalities, such as Memphis and other ones such as Germantown and Collierville, when their salaries increase each year, and if ours don't increase, then someone can easily say, well, I'm going to leave the sheriff's office and I'm going to go somewhere else where I can make more money. So we will be coming before you next week with an additional item to consider for public safety.
And I'm back in the queue, Madam, but I know you got
Mr.
something to say.
Caswell.
Okay, so to that point then,
Any public safety position that's covered by a memorandum of understanding and a special salary schedule, each time there is a raise, then that special salary schedule increases. And one of the things that we've learned over the last 2 years is that our vacant positions are not being budgeted at year one of that step. So that is also a cost associated that if it is not corrected pretty soon, in the financials that we see in the budget presentation, we'll be bringing that before you as well. I don't know if you all know, we started the year in budgeting in Oracle EPM, and then we transitioned to team budget. So not all of the information is the same. So we're working, trying to reconcile that and then making sure that every position is budgeted correctly.
yeah. So when we look at this, could you explain even the attrition rate of the people who may be falling off compared to the people who coming on? How are we looking?
The table with this particular item is because we do care about our employees and we want to retain them. And if we don't have a full complement, then guess what? They're working overtime. So just because we may not have all 100% of the positions filled, the work is still getting done through overtime.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I know I see a lot of our officers appreciate it. Sheriff, I want to say I appreciate you and Chief Buckner when I asked for more patrol in northern Raleigh area where the neighbors are saying they are seeing them come in and that's helping out in some of the neighborhoods, Spring Valley and other that's been giving us trouble there. When we talk about overtime, then what do that look like? I mean, can you give us a breakdown of the amount, the overtime that they're spending, officers are getting with the sheriff's department? So
Our budget for overtime is $11.7 million. We asked for an $8 million increase in the overtime budget. That's one of the budget modifications. It's in 3 different sections. So it's in the administration, the law enforcement, and the jail division where we have about $8 million that we are asking to be added to our budget as well. So we'll have more discussion about that when we come back next week. But if you're looking for individual employees' amounts, how much they've earned in overtime, that's something we can, get to you.
okay, and I just in this would say, like when we talk about overtimes, I know Sheriff, I don't know where the MOU came with the FedEx form. I know I see a lot of sheriff deputies now working, not the Memphis Police Department. Is it that the Memphis Police Department left and we got a country?
Those type of details, so county government is not paying for them to be there at FedEx form.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Vice Chair Avant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question. There was a mention, I think, from that would be a part of juvenile court. Am I mistaken in that?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. It's my understanding that the mayor's administration came before this body with the request for 50 positions, and there is a Division of Corrections budget inside of the budget, the proposed budget document that totals about $8.2 million. I think there's been a question posed of us, would we be willing to fund? So to answer your question, it's not our understanding that any of our employees are moving to or remaining at the Youth Justice Education Center. They very well may choose to, but that information is not known to us yet. But it's our understanding that there are budgeted positions already in the Youth Justice Education Center under the Division of Corrections. Now, there was a question posed about whether or not we would provide any funding to the Youth Justice Education Center, and of course, we will consider that.
Okay. Commissioner, Mr. Thornton.
Gerald Thornton, main positions in corrections, those positions which the sheriff is going to be allowed to maintain. So if you're asking a question, is the sheriff, and not to put any words in Mr. Lindsay's mouth, going to give up those positions at this point, the answer is no. He's going to be able to keep those positions that are currently in his budget that were given in 2016. The exact number was 115 to be exact. And you all are going to have to refund those positions in the upcoming budget.
What does that mean, refund those positions?
Well, you have to, if he's allowed to maintain those positions that he's given up or given to the administration, then you're going to have to finance those additional 115 positions over time. Because
So
if you're not going to
the
move.
positions, when the revenue associated with funding the positions wouldn't follow the positions?
That's common sense, yes, ma'am. But in this instance, that's not what we're doing here. What you're doing here, in essence, is you're going to fund the new positions at the YJAC, but the sheriff is going to be allowed to maintain those same positions that were previously assigned to the YJAC within his budget. And again, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of Ms. Lindsay, but that's what she said, the $8.5 million, and that the sheriff may give up those positions. But it would be common sense that if the sheriff is going to give up those positions or give over to the administration the operations of the YJAC, then the funding associated with the YJAC should come over to that department, which takes control and custody of those juveniles.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Point of clarification, when the Sheriff's Office received positions from juvenile court in 2015, there were 91 positions. Those positions were not at the same rate of pay as corrections deputies. They had juvenile court detention officers. And we're not saying that we're not giving up any money. We're not saying we're going to keep all positions. We're saying that is yet to be determined.
What is the process of the determination? Because I think the time frame that we're making budget decisions is slowly closing in on us, right? Mm-hmm. And so for us to have a better understanding of where every position is going and then the funding source for that position, I understand what it may have been when you were first given those positions, the youth detention center. But if you're no longer going to be running that and that's going to be out of the Department of Corrections, how many of those positions are?
See you in 1 second. Can we go to someone else and I'll get right back to you?
Based upon Gerald Thorne, Director of Human Resources, based upon what you said, Commissioner Avant, that's a very astute question. If the sheriff, or since the sheriff is going to give up that operation, then all funds and fees that are associated with the funding of the YJAC should come over to the Department of Corrections, whether it's feeding the youth, housing the youth, clothing the youth, and maintaining the facilities, then all of those funds associated should come over to the commission, to the Department of Corrections, because if not, think about what you're going to do. The sheriff's going to be allowed to maintain all of the fees that are associated or funds with the maintenance of the YJAC. Then you're going to have to refund or fund again, or let me use another word, be duplicative in your funding. So if let's say I'm using a hypothetical, I don't know the exact number, let's say it's $14 million. Then you're going to have to come up with another $14 million for the YJAC, but yet still the sheriff is going to be able to keep that $14 million within his current budget. If these positions are created, which Ms. Lindsay said, on the ASME 1733 as corrections deputies, not corrections officers, I'm sorry, not sheriff deputies, I'm sorry, but corrections deputies, then those deputies who are covered by us vote down those in Director Alexander's shop, and they don't get the increase, and yet still they get the increase in their budget for those individuals. You give them the money, but they're not required to hire those individuals because they're no longer going to be at the YJAC. A majority of what you have here today under the ASME 1733, those individuals are actually assigned to the YJAC as well, or YJAC. You can actually give them that increase in salary, and yet still the sheriff will not be required to hire those individuals due to the fact that he's no longer going to maintain those individuals after October 1.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. One of the issues that we've had in the budget process is that we have employees that are in the wrong position. So for example, we may have people that are listed in the county's Human Resources Center under one cost center that should be in another cost center. So that's been one of our issues of trying to determine who's really at the YJAC and which positions are going to stay at the YJAC. So that's one issue. We've been working with finance since before March on that particular issue. The second thing I want to say is the mayor's administration brought a resolution before you that had 50 positions, which those salaries and benefits did not align with what we have at the Youth Justice Education Center. And finally, what we're probably willing to give up is about 6.5 million. So what's currently budgeted for the YJAC under the Division of Corrections is like 8.2 or 8.3 million, and we may be willing to give up 6.5.
Just as a follow-up to about this last, and then I'll get back in queue. What do you mean willing to give up if you have 8.3 budgeted for the Y?
No,
Jack.
no. I haven't told you the amount that we have budgeted for UJAC. I was saying what's currently budgeted for the Division of Corrections for the YJAC. Our budget may be 8 million, and some of the things that we're paying for, they may not pay for. One of the things is food services. They may do their own food service program. We have a contracted vendor.
Obviously, we have to delve down deeper into the details because I guess the hypotheticals and what I'm willing are just, that unnerves me that we are playing these kind of word games with when we have a budget amount and we have a number of employees and we have salaries associated with those things should be pretty black and white, in my opinion.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. There are some things that juvenile court did not have before the Shelby County Sheriff's Office took over. College incentive, all these other type of things that they did not have, that we began to fund those things. So it's not necessarily apples to apples. It all depends. We were not privy to how the budget for the Division of Corrections was developed. We can tell you how we develop our budget. So we can't say that just because there may be X amount of dollars in our budget, that full amount should go to the Youth Justice and Education Center.
If I may interject, Gerald Thornton, Director of Human Resources. I appreciate Ms. Lindsay and what she's saying here, but I have to take issue with it. Department of Corrections has been substantially underfunded when it comes to their offices. If you recall, you all just gave them, hopefully in this coming budget, the 5% increase. They're receiving less than, their salaries are 5% less. They currently do not have a college incentive program like the Sheriff Department does. The mayor's proposed that in this upcoming budget, and hopefully you all support that. And so the sheriff has been flush in cash all throughout the process. And now what we're saying is, and I'm not speaking on behalf of administration, but I'm almost speaking on behalf of common sense. If you vacate your apartment that you're living in today, and you move into another apartment, you're not required to continue paying that apartment note that you vacate. And that's exactly what you're all about to do. If you allow the sheriff to continue with the $8.5 or $10 million or whatever, the other costs that are associated with maintaining these juveniles, you're not just looking at the salaries associated with the corrections deputies, and I appreciate Ms. Lindsay, you're looking at the food, you're looking at the overhead, you're looking at the costs, you're looking at the utilities. And so I heard her say she'd be willing to negotiate, or whatever term she used, that she may give you back. I don't think there is an option of giving it back. You all are this honorable board. This is your board. This is your commission. You make the determination as to how the budget is set. Common sense would dictate that if that department is no longer maintaining these juveniles, then you would take the entire amount that was associated with them, including the costs associated with the body, the uniforms, the training, the food, and the utilities, and you transferred to that department or division that's taking control of those youth. You can't come down here and say, well, I think I'm going to give you a piece of what you gave me in 2016 because I'm whomever. That's not right. And so let's use some common sense here. Common sense would dictate that whatever costs that were associated, including the 5% increases, the 6% salary increases, 3% increases that we received, and the like, for the last couple of years, almost 10 years, that you all would actually transfer those costs, all costs that are associated with these juveniles and the YJAC from the Sheriff's Department to the Department of Corrections.
Director Thornton, I thank you. I think we're now at the point where we're talking about YJAC and we're talking about discussions that now I think actually, thank you, Vice Chair Avant, because I think you went down a great line of questioning around like what makes sense in this moment in time. I know this is my first concern is this is not necessarily about the item that we're discussing, but I think my bigger concern now at this point is it's clear that there has been a breakdown of communication around how do we move forward, and it is not the first time. I'm going to look at Commissioner Caswell and Commissioner Wright because you have highlighted this around YJAC, and now I'm even more concerned around it because I think the key thing is employees is one perspective of it, but if you're talking about supporting young people and they've had additional programming and all of those things, that additional programming should go with them to wherever they go. All of those things, and very similar to how regarding children in school buildings, the money follows the child. So I'm concerned here. And I don't want us to go back and forth because this isn't a back and forth. I just want to be able to be very clear to put it on the record. We obviously need more additional discussion around what's happening regarding YJAC. And Judge Sugarman is not here and his team is not here. The mayor's team is not here. But this is a huge highlight for me because I don't think anyone is thinking about what's the best service for these children. I think we've made it this number and cents game, but nobody's talking about what's going to be best in order to support them.
Sheriff Bonner, these are the questions and the concerns that all of us had during negotiation. We've tried to get the juvenile court to the table. We've tried to work this out with the mayor. What we're talking about when we say the $6.3 million is money that this commission, this body, gave us at the time that we took over juvenile court detention, which was back in 2015. Now, you know, Mr. Thorne can talk about what makes sense and all of that, but what makes sense to me is that we're not trying to hoard any positions. When we took those positions from the county, those positions were at a lower rate of pay. Okay, we changed, bringing professionalism down to the YJAC, bringing officers down there that were trained, highly trained, to work specifically with juveniles. When I made the decision for us to pull out and ask Judge Sugarman to do his constitutional duty, which in the state of Tennessee makes him over detention, we tried to have these discussions, and now here we are still with an October date of pulling out, and we're still talking about monies, and all of these things should have been worked out. So I don't want you to leave here thinking that the sheriff's office is not willing to do what's necessary, but there are a lot of things that this commission does not know about, as we mentioned, the food service contract and all of these things. So, I mean, this is an expense that we bared and not come back to the commission and ask for additional money. We had funds in our budget that we worked it out and made it work. So, Ms. Thorne makes it like, you know, that we're just oblivious to what's going on here. But again, these were conversations that we should have had a year ago, because I had informed Judge Sugarman back in 23 that we were going to pull out in 24, and here we are in 25, and we still hadn't left. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this.
Thank you, Sheriff Bonner. Commissioner Caswell, you in the queue.
And again, and appreciate you, Chair. To that point, I know Commissioner Wright brought a resolution back when, and I tried to support it to say that we should have had these conversations then, because now it is before us, because we didn't address it then. But to that point, because I don't want, and some may be saying they want to defund the police. That's the quick word that is put out there. This is not about that. This is, when I look at this, Sheriff, and you help me to understand, because I want to stay in the lane that I heard back when you all was having this discussion, even last year, even when we talked with the correctional, that you needed your officers to go to 201 Poplar. So the money is going with those officers to 201 Poplar, right? So I think that's that for me, because that's what I heard.
That's correct, Commissioner. Those officers will not lose their jobs. They're just being reassigned down to more pressing needs that I have running 201 as well as jail.
So I think we shouldn't be having the conversation that the money is not staying in public safety, it's just going to where you said at the time you felt you needed the officers at 201 Poplar and you couldn't continue to do juvenile court.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So that where I am with that though is so I do understand the need for the extra correctional because you were short. We needed to still be able to do our obligation to support juvenile court, and we're doing that with these hire of the new officers. Now, I think like if it is some other dollars that may be there again, CAO, and you can help us understand what that looked like. But when I think about the apples to apples, is the officers are staying with the sheriff department, going to 201 Poplar to help fill that gap. And we then talk about what's left after that for whatever budgetary reason there. So I just wanted to kind of what I wanted to make sure I'm clear in understanding that nothing changed, that these officers are staying with you, but they go into 201 Poplar.
Yes, sir. I hope they stay with me. But obviously, if they wanted to go over to the Division of Corrections, I'm not going to stop that or whatever. If, you know, for instance, if they want to change within county government, that's certainly their option as well. But I'm in hope that all of them will be able to come or would want to come down to 201, and we fill some gaps that Chief Fields and the command staff down there desperately need.
So this ASME Local 1733, it does not represent our correctional officers as well. It's just the sheriff deputies.
Kirk Fields, Chief Jailer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. ASME 1733 has a chapter at the Division of Corrections, just as well as they have a chapter at the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, 201 Poplar, which covers our 201 facility, our jail east facility, and our youth justice facility. But they are under the same umbrella with ASME.
And so our correctional officers at the Peliform, are they under this unit?
Yeah, they're under ASME, but they have a separate chapter than the Sheriff's Office chapter.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caswell. I think, thank you for your comments. And Sheriff Bonner, I know you were talking about the people individually around wanting to support them and staying, but I think as we go through this budget situation that we're in, we need to also just maintain focus on the actual positions, because I think that's where we're kind of off on understanding. So you're saying that the positions are going to stay in your budget because you need to reallocate those positions to 201 Poplar.
Commissioner, I don't think that, and it's so confusing here, and I don't want to confuse the matter even more. We had positions that were given to us in 2015. We're willing to give those positions up, but know that those positions are at a higher rate of pay now than they were in 2015, because those people were wearing, those correction officers were wearing blue jeans and T-shirts to work, okay? So when the sheriff's office, and Sheriff Odom was the sheriff at the time, agreed to take it over, we changed the whole model of what was going on down there. So you're not comparing apples to apples here. You know, what we took in 2015 is not where we're at in 2025 now. So there is a willingness to give up positions, but it's not as cut and dry as Mr. Thorne want to make it seem, that because we're not comparing apples to apples here.
Ms. Lindsay.
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. And I just want to point out that there are 3 months in the fiscal year that we're still going to be covering the Youth Justice Education Center. So there's still some funding that's going to be needed from the Sheriff's Office at that location. That's one thing I wanted to point out. And then we have representatives here from our detention facility, and they wanted me to make sure that I express that being a deputy corrections officer for the jail, 201 Poplar, YJAC, or Jail East, is not the same as being at the Division of Corrections. First of all, we're seeing pre-trial detainees. These individuals come in, they don't know what's going to happen to them in the future. When you go to the Division of Corrections, you've already been sentenced. So the behavior is totally different. So that's one of the things they wanted me to point out to you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Avent, you're back in the queue.
Thank you. Ms. Lindsay, can you provide just of the difference between or Sheriff, the difference between the dollars, the 6.4 or 6 million that was given to you when you all took over the YJAC versus the difference in the amount and what that now, what those, and not today, but just if you could just share that in email, that'd be helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Avent. Commissioner Wright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I got in the queue to say basically what my colleague Commissioner Caswell mentioned earlier. It was exactly 1 year and 1 day ago that this body voted down a resolution that I brought forward just seeking for us to intermediation on this subject. And I wish we had. However, I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I understand, there may have been language in that original resolution that other commissioners found disagreeable, but the point was for us to work this out. I am glad that this body supported the corrections move. I think that's a good agreeable thing for all of us. You wanted to cease your operations there, and we needed coverage, and so I'm glad for juvenile court that they and corrections and the mayor's office have a path forward, and you all are staying on for a little while through the transition, which is great. I also appreciate your willingness to work with us on the positions and some of that associated funding. So I imagine what you're not saying is that you kind of need to see where other things shake out throughout this process before you're willing to fully turn that over. Is that accurate?
Alicia Lindsay, Chief Administrative Officer, Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Commissioner Wright, you're absolutely correct. For example, our salary restriction in fiscal year 2025 is about $47 million. In the proposed budget, it went up to $50.8 million. It went up by $6.5 million. We didn't budget for a salary restriction or vacancy savings. So with the scrutiny that we're receiving about the Youth Justice Education Center, I wish we could receive that same scrutiny about our salary restriction.
Got it. Well, yeah, so I think there is more work to be done. I wish we could have done it a little while back, but here we are. So, but I'm committed to working with all parties to make sure we have a good resolution for all of us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Brooks, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sheriff Barner, it is my understanding that there is a transition team to transition from the Sheriff's Office to corrections. Is that correct? Are you a part of that? You all a part of that?
Yes, ma'am. We've submitted our transition team a year or so ago, Commissioner. Team members, Chief Fields, and some of the other staff, we've submitted policies and procedures.
What
all
about
of these
some of
things.
this, what we're talking about
Yes,
now?
ma'am.
Have you all had any discussion about these funded dollars, the 6.3, 6.4, whatever? Okay. If you have not, I don't want to try to go back into it now. I just asked that question because I want to make sure that, you are part of the transition team. And to Commissioner Wright's point, in reference to us discussing this, we have not. I wish we had, because this is very important. So I'm going to convene the Juvenile Court Committee, and what we're going to do is make sure we have all parties involved in this transition, a part of that meeting, so we can get some of this resolved at the same time.
Well, as far as I know, we've never seen a transition team from juvenile court. We've submitted our names. We told them, who's going to be there. We've given them policy and procedure. However, we've never received a list of people that were going to be a part of this. So,
and that's one of the reasons why I'm going to convene the Juvenile Court Committee, because Juvenile Court says that they are meeting, and Corrections is meeting with Juvenile Court, but you haven't been a part of it. So we're going to have the Juvenile Court meet.
Let me also say this, though. Since the mayor's decided that Corrections would take over, we have met with Director Alexander group. He's been working with Chief Fields. We're trying to work all the particulars out as to how this transition would occur, but going back in the past, and maybe we don't even need to talk about the past.
Right.
It didn't happen, okay? But moving forward, we are working with Director Alexander now, Chief Fields. I've even talked to Director Alexander. So we're trying to work all the things out because it's just so much involved with training and so on and so forth. So we're trying to get all these things done.
And we want to make sure that commissioners who are interested in that funding, the amount of money that was given to the Sheriff's Department for the care and custody and maintenance of those youth in 2016, we want to come to some kind of consensus understanding and have clarity around how much of that money is left after the care, custody, and maintenance of those children, and we'll be going over to corrections. So we can all hash that out, and maybe we can bring all our little papers and documents and so forth to the meeting, and certainly we'll have advance notice.
Again, going back, Sheriff Bonner, I'm sorry, going back in trying to make this an orderly transition, we've sent all our financials, we've sent everything we could to juvenile court, and even gave them a team and waited for them to sit down with us and talk to us. Again, moving forward, we are talking to Director Alexander. I think things are going well. He's looking at the numbers, he's looking at the training, he's working with Chief Fields. The things that I wished had been done a year ago, because this would have been so much smoother, so much smoother had we just been talking. And but you know, when you got two people together, if only one person's willing to talk, then it just doesn't work.
Well, we'll all get in the room at the same time, all of the major parties involved in this transition, and then we can all hear the same thing, and we can all share our documents and so forth. And of course, the commissioners who are interested will be made aware of how that money is going to be dispersed. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Thank you, Sheriff Bonner, for your presentation. And this actually adjourns Subcommittee for Budget and Finance for today. Thank you.